if you took your notes with you last week, we printed them out. You should know this because this is the third week we're discussing this, or the third time we're discussing it.
Is it the Samadarshana?
What does that mean? Yeah. So what verse explains it?
It's 12:14.
No.
Oh no, it's 5:18.
Yeah. Vidya Vinaya Sampani Brahmani Gavi Hastini Sunichayava Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. You know that verse, Mayapur? Let me hear you say it. Right. What? Yes, very good. That's called equal vision, samadarshana. This is one theme of the Bhagavad Gita, right? So it's a good thing to learn these things. You learn something, right? If you don't do your homework, you don't read the notes, and if you don't take notes, if you don't listen carefully in class, you're basically wasting your time. So you should learn something, right? So what's another? So there's such a thing as a mnemonic. A mnemonic is something that you know that helps you understand or remember something you don't know. So there are 6 themes that we discussed. So if you remember the mnemonic, Sai-arp, S-I-A-A-A, Sai-opt, S-I-A-A-A-P. So number 1, S, Samadarshana. I, Icha. A, Ahimsa. A, Acharya. A, Amanitvam. P, Priti. 6 things. So by learning the mnemonic means something that you know that helps you understand something you don't know. So you don't have memorized the 6 themes, but if you just remember Sai-ap, S-I-A-A-A-P. So number 1 is Samadarshi. Number 2 is Icha. Number 3 is Ahimsa. Number 4 is Acharya. Number 5 is Amanitva. And number 6 is Priti. Right? See, now quickly you learn something by using a mnemonic. S-I-A-A-A-P. Sayap. So Samadarshana is equal vision. Icha means desire, or basically free choice, right? So what is our free choice or free will limited to? Yeah, you can either accept or reject Krishna's instructions. That's the limit of our freedom. If you accept them and follow them, you'll go back to Godhead. If you reject them and don't follow them, you stay in the material world. We don't have any other freedom, free choice. You can't choose never to eat or drink. You're forced to do it. You can't choose never to sleep. You're forced to do it. You can't choose to wake up, never to wake up. You're forced to do it. You can't choose not to work. You'll be forced to do it. Everything else you're forced to do, but you have free choice of these two things. Either you choose to follow Krishna's advice, or you refuse to choose Krishna's advice. And Krishna knows what's going to happen to you either way. What's going to happen? Mayapur. All right, and? Well, Krishna knows what's going to happen either way. Either you go back to Godhead or you stay in the material world. Okay? All right, so that second thing is Icha. And then Krishna tells Arjuna also in the 18th chapter, Kaschit itach chutam parta tvai ai kagrena chetasa kaschit agyana samoha pranastas te dhananjaya. O Arjuna, O Prita, O conqueror of wealth. The name conqueror of wealth is Dhananjaya. Dan means wealth. Have you heard this with an attentive mind, and are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? So Krishna is the guru, so he's asking Arjuna, look, I just spoke a long time. Did you hear this? Do you understand? I mean, the whole purpose was you had doubts, you didn't want to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. Now I've explained everything to you. Are all your doubts gone away? So you can read this purport. Go ahead, who's going to read the purport? You read the purport. It's there in your notes. No, let her, give her the microphone.
The Lord was acting as the spiritual master of Arjuna. Therefore, it was his duty to inquire from Arjuna whether he understood the whole Bhagavad Gita in its proper perspective. If not, the Lord was ready to re-explain any point, or the whole Bhagavad Gita if so required. Actually, anyone who hears Bhagavad Gita from ignorance is dispelled.
From
a bona fide spiritual master. Like Krishna or his representative will find that all his ignorance is dispelled. Bhagavad Gita is not an ordinary book written by a poet or fiction writer. It is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any person fortunate enough to hear these teachings from Krishna or from his bona fide spiritual representative is sure to become a liberated person and
Very good. Mayapur, you have a question? What does? Representative mean? Yeah. Like, for example, if there's a company and somebody is a salesman, he goes out and he represents the company to customers. He's a person who explains to others what the company is all about. So he's a representative. So if you hear from Krishna himself or from his bona fide spiritual representative, so who's Krishna's bona fide spiritual representative? You understand now? He's representing Krishna, right? If you meet Krishna, or if you meet Prabhupada, it's the same thing. They're both saying the same thing. Prabhupada is representing Krishna correctly, as he is. Okay. Yeah, so Krishna goes to a lot of trouble to help people understand the Bhagavad Gita so that they make the right choices in life. What are the two choices you have? Okay, what are the two choices you have? Yeah, what are the two? What is the limit of your free will? Okay, turn on the microphone.
To accept Krishna's instructions or to reject them.
Right. Those are the only two choices you have in life. Everything else you're going to be forced to do. Now, it says here, the most important thing in spiritual life is to hear effectively with an attentive mind, because it is so hard to control the mind. Do you agree with that? Yeah? My poor gears. Anybody else agree with that? Or yes? Okay. Why do you agree? Quiet. I didn't ask you. Go ahead. Do you have control? Do you have trouble controlling your mind? So, if you learn how to control your mind in Bhagavatam class, that would be a good life skill for everything else you do, right? Especially for effective hearing. So let's read 13th chapter, verse 26. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, verse 26. Do you have a Bhagavad Gita? No. So get the Bhagavad Gita's. There's one right here. Veda base? Vedabase. Chapter 13, verse number 26. Shivani is going to read. Go ahead. "26. Anye tvevam ajananta shutvanyebhya upasate tepi chati taranti eva mrityun shruti parayanaha. The shruti parayanaha means effective hearing. Go ahead. No, I didn't say you. Your name is not Shivani. Go ahead.
Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the spiritual person upon
Supreme Person
upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
What do you think this verse means? Try and explain it in your own words. Conversant means they are knowledgeable of a certain subject. They're aware of it. Or they're able to explain it. So they're not conversant. Yes?
Basically, they're saying that people who don't know the spiritual knowledge,
Yeah.
they worship just worship oh, this is God, so I'm just gonna worship because they get that from other people. It says that supreme person, they get to worship the supreme person upon hearing about him from others.
So what is the essential thing? For people who are not conversant, what leads them or what inspires them to serve the Supreme Lord? From who? From some drunkard? Yeah. So, you see, You can change your whole conception of life by hearing Bhagavad Gita from a bona fide person. You can change the whole material conception of life to spiritual conception if you hear. Just like Arjuna heard from Krishna, it changed his whole conception of life. He thought that he was a member of a certain family, and he didn't see any way he was going to be happy, whether he won or lost the battle, and therefore he was refusing to follow Krishna's order, and because he had the material conception of life. What's the material conception? He was thinking, this is my body, and everything in relationship with my body is me. But on this battlefield, on both sides are my people. Therefore, he was not able to fight, even though Krishna's ordering him to fight. You see, so you can change the whole material conception of life by hearing from bona fide devotees. Now, Mayapur has something really urgent to say. He's waving his arm up in the air. So, what do you want, Mayapur? 1 hour. It's 1 hour. Well, there was a conversation. He didn't just recite it. Arjuna had to ask him questions also, and he answered the questions one by one. So you see, Arjuna and Krishna both were exceptional. Krishna, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Arjuna was an exceptional person. He was able to focus his mind, even though he was in the middle of a battlefield, ready to kill people. He was able to completely focus his mind. Okay, Shivani, we don't want to see your tonsils when you yawn, right? So what do you do when you yawn?
Cover your mouth.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't want to see your tonsils again. Okay. Do you want to see anybody else's tonsils? No. Okay. All right. So you were reading. Go ahead. This verse. Oh, who was reading? You were reading? You were reading. Okay, go ahead.
The purport?
Yeah.
This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters.
Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic.
You know what agnostic means? You know what atheistic means?
Yeah. You don't believe in God.
Yeah. Agnostic is a person that says, I don't have any information about God, so I can't say I believe or I don't believe. You know, so if I get the information, then I might believe or I might not believe. But right now, the truth is I don't have any information, therefore I can't make a decision whether I believe or I don't believe. So he doesn't say I don't believe in God. He doesn't say I do believe in God. He just says I don't have the information. If I get the information, I'll consider it, and maybe I can believe, or maybe I'll come to the conclusion that I don't believe.
Isn't
What?
he technically kind of like an atheist?
Well, we don't want to brand them so quickly, because he's saying if I get the information, then I might accept it and believe it. Atheist doesn't believe anything about God. Yes. They have reasons why they don't believe in God.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The agnostic doesn't have a reason to say I don't believe in God. He doesn't have a reason to say I do believe in God. He just doesn't have the information. Okay? All right, go ahead.
If we preach like Bhagavad Gita to them, then they would consider it.
What?
If we preach the Bhagavad Gita to them,
Yeah.
they would consider it.
They'll consider you. Well, the atheist will just argue with you. Whereas the agnostic might listen and consider what you're saying if you speak something that makes sense to him. Okay?
Some of the people may appear to be atheistic, agnostic.
Or
or agnostic or philosophical,
Not philosophical. Philosophical.
but actually there's no knowledge of philosophy. As for a common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing, because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially according to Lord Chaitanya. If he hears the transcendental vibrations,
he can progress, not progress.
he can
Progress is a noun. Progress is a verb. It's spelled exactly the same. But if you pronounce it progress, that's wrong. In this context, it's used as a verb.
Wait, what's the difference?
No, if it's used as a verb, it's different than if it's used as a noun. So if you say, I made progress by listening to the class I made progress in my spiritual life by listening in the class. But on the other hand, you say, if you progress to the next stage, you might be able to make some progress. So, in the first instance, it's used as a verb. In the second instance, it's used as a noun. If you can progress to the next stage, you might be able to make some progress. But see, you read here that, let's see. Let's see, what did you read?
If he hears the progress, especially.
He can progress, right? And you said he can progress. You see how you have to learn the difference about all these things. Go ahead.
Especially according to Lord Chaitanya. If he hears the transcendental vibrations, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. So
what happens if you hear from an unrealized soul?
Then you will get the...
Huh? What'll happen? Say it out loud.
Then you become unrealized. Like you won't get what they're saying.
Yeah, you won't understand the spiritual knowledge. You'll get the wrong understanding. Just like you won't know the difference between progress and progress. And so many other things. You have to hear carefully. Go ahead.
The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning.
Speculative, not speculative.
Speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of the pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back home.
Back to home.
Go
Right.
back to home.
Right. So, this is a very nice purport. And just by hearing from a bona fide devotee, you can change the material conception of life into the spiritual conception of life. So, but the question is to hear from a bona fide devotee. There are many unbona fide people that claim to be devotees, but they're not bona fide. How can you tell if they're bona fide or not? That's one criterion. It's one way. Yes, Mayapur has his hand up. That's good.
How they talk, and so that if they talk like
Yeah, so you can tell by how they talk, right? If they talk like a Mayavadi, are they a bona fide devotee?
No.
Okay. So how does a bona fide devotee talk?
He talks like Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We need to respect him and all good stuff about Krishna and not like...
So when he tries to explain to you about Krishna, does he quote some passages from Harry Potter?
No.
What
means
does he
he's a-
quote from?
The Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, very good. So if he's always talking about Harry Potter, is he a bona fide devotee?
No.
No. If he's always talking about Mickey Mouse, is he a bona fide devotee?
No.
Okay. So, now we know the criterion. He has to speak from Bhagavad Gita. He has to back up everything he or she says with Krishna's own words. Is the Bhagavad Gita Krishna's own words? If it's Bhagavad Gita as it is. What if it's Bhagavad Gita as somebody else wants it to be? Is that Krishna's words? No. So you have to get Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay, Mayapur, you raised your hand. That means we call on you. Go ahead.
And plus you can easily tell that they're a Mayavadi because they tell like all these weird stuff that we don't know, and he's not like quoting it from the Bhagavad Gita, and he tells like after we do this we become God, and after we can do whatever we want to do.
Yeah, that's Mayavad philosophy. After you do this meditation or something, you become God.
Yeah.
Then you can do whatever you want. Very good. That's Mayavad philosophy. Okay, so, but Prabhupada explains here, you just read, so let's see, there's like 4 points, I think. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, point 1, what does that mean, take shelter of a pure devotee?
It's like having a guru.
Okay, raise your hand. Go ahead.
Interacting with them.
Yes, interacting with him. Yeah, taking shelter means you accept to hear from them and follow their instructions. As long as those instructions are the same as Krishna's instructions. Yeah, yes, Mayapur, what do you want to say?
It's like having a guru.
I want you to sit in closer to them because you're constantly going back and forth. Yeah, taking shelter means what?
like having a guru.
Yes. Right. So first point is taking shelter of pure devotee. Point 2, hear from him about self-realization. Point 3, follow in his footsteps. And then what will happen? One will gradually be elevated to the position of a pure devotee. Okay, so 3 essential points. 1, take shelter of a pure devotee. 2, hear from him or her about self-realization. 3, follow in his footsteps. What does it mean, follow in his footsteps? Okay, somebody else. Go ahead, you say, what does it mean, follow in his footsteps?
Like serve, like for example, it was Krishna, and you're saying follow into your footsteps means like.
So follow in his footsteps is called a metaphor. Give it back to her. Give it back. Follow in his footsteps is what is called a metaphor, a metaphorical phrase. It means if you follow in somebody's footsteps, what does that literally mean?
You're getting inspired by them?
Yeah, it means basically whatever they tell you to do, you do. That's following in their footsteps. Yes?
What's the second one?
What?
The second point.
Hear from them. And the third point is first point is take shelter. Second point is hear from them. And the third point is follow in their footsteps. So the first point is take shelter means you accept them as your teacher and as a guru. And the second point is you hear from that person about self-realization. And the third point is you follow in their footsteps, you follow their instructions. If they tell you to read this chapter, do this homework, you do it. And if you do it, point 4, gradually you'll become a pure devotee. Okay, it's pretty simple. Take shelter of a pure devotee, or take shelter of a real devotee. Hear from them, follow their instructions, you'll also become a pure devotee. Okay? So, and then, in this verse particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. So faithful hearing, we're going to discuss that when we come back. Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki.
Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Gopura Ranjana Kana Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Gopura Ranjana Kana Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Gopura Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Kaliya Damana Bhavana Amala Harinam Aminavinasam Amala Harinam Aminavinasam Vipina Purandana Vipina Purandana Ravina Nagara Bara Namsivadana Subhada Brajavana Palana Surakulana Shana Brajavana Palana Surakulana Shana Nanda Godana Navidubrana Govinda Madhava Navanika Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanika Taskara Sundara Nandana Gopala Sundara Jamuna Tatachara Gopi Pasanahara Rasara Krishna Kripamoya Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Nattakala Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Nattakala Vamsiyodasha Vinodasha Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Gopura Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohana Gopi Paranadana Purandara Navina Nagara Vara Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Nandana Brajavara Nagara Yashomati Nandana Brajavara Nagara Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Krishna
That's good. Hare Krishna. So okay, so we stopped on the point of faithful hearing. And Prabhupada writes, although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. So what does it mean, faithful hearing? Oh, go ahead. What does it mean? Okay, give her the microphone. That's your job. Go ahead.
Like if you're listening to someone, like if you're listening to someone like read the Bhagavad Gita, then like when you're listening, you don't have like so many doubts. Like you're not thinking like, oh, did this actually happen? Like you just believe it because like you have faith.
Well, the number one thing you need faith in is Krishna, right? If you don't think Krishna is God, then why would you can't hear faithfully. You have to have faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's point one. So if he's God, he's not an ordinary man. If you think, like the Mayavadis, oh, he's just some temporary manifestation of Brahman, then you're not going to engage in faithful hearing because you think he's just like me. I'm also a temporary manifestation, you know. So, no, we have an eternal soul, and Krishna is the supreme eternal soul. And he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, if you believe he's a certain Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you'll faithfully hear what he says. And this is explained right in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says that he says, therefore Bhagavad Gita should be taken up in a spirit of devotion. One should not think that he is equal to Krishna, nor should he think that Krishna is an ordinary personality, or even a very great personality. Lord Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So according to the statements of Bhagavad Gita, or the statements of Arjuna, the person who's trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita, we should at least theoretically accept Shri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and with that submissive spirit, we can understand Bhagavad Gita. Unless one reads the Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it's very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita because it is a great mystery. So, the point is, even if you don't have faith, you should at least theoretically accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if you have faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you will understand Bhagavad Gita rather easily. So most people don't have faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like if you meet a Muslim and he'll say, oh no, Krishna is not God, there's only Allah, there's no Krishna, we don't believe in Krishna. Well then obviously they're not going to believe anything in the Bhagavad Gita. course, they don't understand that Allah and Krishna are the same person. That they'll never understand because they eat too much meat. But if you meet a Muslim who is not such a big meat eater and he's actually pious, then you can explain to him Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But there are very few that are willing to listen, but the ones that are listen, you can explain. If they're not willing to listen, they just want to argue, then don't waste your time. Just like sometimes we meet Christians, they don't really want to discuss, they just want to argue. So that's a waste of time talking to people like that. Just try and trick them to take some prasadam, then later on they might become purified by taking prasadam. But otherwise, you don't want to waste your time, they'll just get angry. Okay, so now we just read 1326, where Prabhupada is emphasizing faithful hearing. I mean, you can't faithfully hear unless you believe that Krishna is God. And he's saying that the biggest obstacle to understanding Krishna consciousness is mental speculation. What does that mean? Mental speculation. What does that mean?
I'm just taking a guess, but it might be like...
That's called mental speculation.
Oh.
Annie, go ahead. Make a guess.
I'm making a guess.
Well, without knowing the answer, you just guess.
Yeah.
That's mental speculation. Like, let's say you see the rain, right? And then you just guess, oh, the rain is falling from the sky. So the sky is the cause of the rain. Is that true? No, it's not true. But it's a guess, right? It's a speculation. So you were right. It's a guess. Not based on factual knowledge. Okay. So now we're going to discuss another verse. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 3rd verse. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 3rd verse. And it says, Jnani prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukharatam bhavadya bhartam stani stita srutigatan tanaman manobir ye prayasa jita jito pi asitais trilokyam. Now, today we've gone into the subject of effective hearing, faithful hearing. Hearing is the way to learn.
Which one?
10:14.
So this verse says, those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words, and mind offer respects to descriptions of your, meaning Krishna's, personality and activities, dedicating their lives to these narrations, which are vibrated by you personally, meaning Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita personally, and by your pure devotees who are speaking in the Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly such a person conquers your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the three worlds. So this is saying that if you reject speculation and speculative knowledge, like speculative knowledge is Darwin, we all come from monkeys. Speculative knowledge is Stephen Hawking. Oh, there are black holes in the universe. The universe started by some big bang that came out of the black hole. Or you believe Freud. Freud says, sex life is actually good, right? These are all speculations. These are all speculators. They don't know what they're talking about. So you have to throw away speculation and speculative knowledge. And he says, with your body, your words, and your mind, you offer respect to the descriptions of Krishna's personality and activities, and dedicate yourself to hearing these descriptions. Then you will conquer Krishna. Krishna will be very attracted to you. Otherwise, it's impossible to conquer Krishna. So this is a very important verse spoken by Lord Brahma himself. So, after hearing this verse, and after hearing the purport to 13:26, we'll go around the room now, beginning with Mayapur, who has his hand up all the time. You can put your hand down now. I'm going to call on you, right? What is your conclusion after hearing the purport to chapter 13, verse 26, and now hearing this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 3rd verse? What is your conclusion, Mayapur? Is your conclusion we should all go to Disneyland to go back to Godhead? No. Okay, good. I'm glad. If you said that, I'd be scared. What's your conclusion?
To go back to Godhead with Krishna.
How? How do you go back to Godhead?
To follow the rules of, like, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Reject everything unfavorable for Krishna and accept everything favorable for Krishna. And when in doubt, ask Shikshka or Diksha or Guru.
And the last one? You forgot the last one.
Faithful hearing.
No, the last one is only do those things that are pleasing to Krishna.
Oh, yeah.
But no, that's not the answer to the question, but it's a good answer. It's a good answer, but it's not the answer to the question. Answer to the question we already discussed. Take shelter of a bona fide devotee. Hear regularly from the bona fide devotee. And number 3, follow in the footsteps. Follow the instructions given by bona fide devotees. Okay? This should be the conclusion after reading purport to 13:26 and the verse 10th canto 14th chapter 3rd verse spoken by Lord Brahma. Then
This was spoken by Lord Brahma.
yes, so he's a big expert, right? He's the founder of our sampradaya. We're in the Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava sampradaya, so we should follow his instructions, right? Mayapur, stop raising your hand all the time. Okay. So what is our conclusion? Okay, let's go around. What is your conclusion after hearing 13:26 and 10:14:3? Microphone, Mayapur. You're sleeping on the job.
When you're like reading the Bhagavad Gita or like reading any like Vedic scriptures, or you're like listening to someone, you should like hear
Someone.
No, like
Is that anyone?
A bona fide spiritual master or
Yes.
like a devotee. You should listen with faith that like you believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Very good.
and you should believe that like without like doubting everything. You should believe it. So like faithful hearing.
Well, okay, now here's a question, and we're going to answer it. What should you do if you have a doubt? Write this question down. What should you do if you have a doubt?
Ask your spiritual
Ask
master.
Krishna or Diksha Guru.
Yes. Right? Should you just stay quiet and keep that doubt in your mind for the rest of your life? No, you should ask Siksha or Diksha Guru. Doubts are demons. Doubts, Prabhupada says that. Doubts are demons. The way you can convince a person not to chant Hare Krishna is to put a doubt in their mind. And what's a doubt? Like you could say, oh, if you keep chanting Hare Krishna, you'll get a headache. And if you get a headache, you won't be able to pass your SAT test. And you'll get left behind and you won't be able to get a good job. Blah, blah, blah. They're trying to put it, the way you can stop a person from being Krishna conscious is to put a doubt in their mind. You see? This is what the demons are good at, putting doubts in people's minds. Very good at it. See? But we should be better than them to put a doubt in their minds. So how do you put a doubt in the demon's mind? Well, preach what?
Preach the Bhagavad Gita.
Well, yes, but what do you have? Okay, what is the foundation of the demon's concept of life? What is the foundation of it?
Me eating. No.
Sense gratification, exactly right. So then, how can you put a doubt in the demon's mind about sense gratification?
You can trick them.
Wait a minute.
Like, they think that when they do sense gratification, that's actually like true happiness. And like drinking, oh, it's so good, it's so yummy, and smoking, oh my god, I love it, and everything like that. But we should show them that, like, by doing kirtan or by eating prasadam or by preaching or dancing and Harinam and kirtan, that we can have fun that way as well. So then they'll like think, wait, is this the true happiness, or what we're doing, or is what we're doing the true happiness? And then
Well, let's see. What happens when, let's say, they drink liquor and beer? What happens?
Well, they
get a hangover.
Yeah.
They throw up. They smell bad. They have to sleep more.
I know.
Right? So, but if you eat prasadam and dance in the kirtan, you get more energy. You don't get a headache.
Yeah.
You feel happy. Right? Yes. Quiet.
You know, in like the smoking, like the tobacco, like at school we learned that there's like there's like 15 like chemicals, and like each one causes main chemical, and then each one causes like this main disease, and like everyone knows that, but like they can't stop, like, because they all just started. Like, how was it, like, how did it even, how, like, why would they do something, like, why would they take like the chemicals and make something like that? Like,
Well, because the chemicals are addictive. In other words,
why would they try it in the first place?
because someone says, hey, this is really cool. If you want to be one of the group, then you have to also smoke. Did anyone ever use peer pressure on you? You know what that means, peer pressure? P-E-E-R, P-R-E-S-S-U-R-E. What is peer pressure?
Like when all your friends are doing something and then they're like, oh, why don't you do it too? Like forcing them.
Right. So in school, sometimes there's a group of people that think smoking is cool. And to be part of their group, you have to also share the cigarette. So some people, due to that peer pressure, they also smoke. Although they know it's bad.
So
But
they
it's
can't
cool
stop.
to do it.
So they can't, like, if you try it, you can stop. Like,
Yeah, in the beginning you can, but if you keep doing it at a certain point, because the cigarette companies used to put highly addictive chemicals into the tobacco. And because of that, very quickly people would get addicted to it. Now they were sued and they had to pay a huge amount of money to not put those chemicals into the tobacco. But tobacco has its own chemicals, naturally, that are addictive. It's just like drinking coffee. It's another... people don't feel right unless they drink coffee because there are addictive chemicals in it, naturally. And sometimes
Even if
they
wanted to stop, they can't stop.
What?
Even if they wanted to stop, they can't stop.
No, because you don't feel good. You feel bad unless you drink the coffee.
But isn't it that when you drink coffee, that's when you feel a little like gloomy, and then that's
You feel what?
gloomy. No, you don't.
Gloomy?
I don't know. I mean, like you feel more tired.
No. It wakes you up.
Really?
That's why they drink it. Yeah. Why does it wake you up? Because it has chemicals in it that make your heart beat faster. When your heart beats faster, it pushes more blood with oxygen through your body, especially to the brain, and that wakes you up artificially. It's an artificial stimulant. You can do the same thing with breathing exercises, right? You don't have to do that, drink coffee. But people get into the habit because it's a social habit also. Have a cigarette in one hand and coffee in the other hand and drink it. Or just like in India, the British started the Indians drinking tea. Before, the Indians never drank tea. It was the British that taught them to drink tea at 4 o'clock every day with these white flour cookies, or cheap junk cookies. You know, before in India they would drink lassi. It's, you know, lassi is yogurt drink. It's good for your health. But then they switched over to British tea. It's just as bad because of the caffeine content. The microphone, you're supposed to give them the microphone.
Then, like, what's the difference between tea and coffee?
It's the same difference between stool that's in the sun. So the top part is dry and the bottom part is still wet. So some people say the top part is better than the bottom part. Is that true?
No.
No, it's all stool. It's the same with coffee and tea. It's all stool.
Oh, okay.
It all has caffeine in it. Some people say, oh no, green tea is good for your health. It has polyphenols in it. Well, it still has the caffeine. And so, well, no, decaf is good. Well, if you want something naturally decaf, you just drink pudina, peppermint, or cinnamon. It doesn't have any. You don't have to decaffeinate it because it doesn't have any caffeine in it.
Is sugar
White sugar is bad for you. Yes. Yes, it is also.
do you know
Not as addictive as other drugs, but you can get addicted to anything. I mean, when I was a kid, I was addicted to ketchup. If I didn't have ketchup, I wouldn't eat anything. Whatever I would eat, I have to put ketchup on it. Yeah, okay, so now we're going to go a little forward now. Now we're going to read another verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, verse number 17. First canto, second chapter, verse 17. Shinvata swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantaksto badrani viduna tisrahitsatam. This verse, you can, if you look up in the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, first verse, it's in the purport. Now this verse is just like Brahma's verse, and just like the purport of 1326. It says, to hear about Krishna from the Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who's dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. How many times did he say hearing or hear in this verse? 4 times. 4 times. So what is he emphasizing in this verse? When I say he, it's Sukadev Goswami who's speaking. What does he emphasize? Hearing what? Hearing about Krishna, yeah. And how can you hear from Krishna directly? No. By Bhagavad Gita. Who speaks Bhagavad Gita? Some guy came in here once, he said, your guru is wrong. Shiva spoke the Bhagavad Gita. And my guru wrote a book proving that Shiva spoke the Bhagavad Gita. He gave me the book. He gave me a whole bunch of them. He said, you should give this out to everyone in your congregation. I said, okay, leave them all here. So he left a whole box of them. What do you think I did with that box? I trashed it, yes. That's complete nonsense. Shiva didn't speak the Bhagavad Gita. Shiva has spoken other things, yes, but he didn't speak the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Mayapur, what do you want to say that's so important?
Do you know how?
You want to say
No.
But you did.
Do you know how on Sunday you had a lecture of people who take drugs, like something happens with their mind and they need to cut their mind like this? Yes. Yeah. You drink Monster.
Yeah.
And 5-hour energy. Those drinks. You drink Monster, you end up looking like a
monster.
Monster. Yeah. What is your question? What do you want?
But if pretend somebody like takes an energy drink for 1 month and after stops doing it, would he still have to cut his head off? I mean, not cut his head off, like do surgery?
No, he drank a lot.
Yeah.
He drank not just for 1 month, but years. Okay, yes. Microphone here.
The book. No, the book that the guy gave you, like, was like how like if someone gives you a book like that and like someone asks you, like if he asked you if you told him that, oh, this is not like fake or something, like how, if someone asked like me or like anyone, how would you like tell them that it's like not real? Like,
no, you have to see. There's certain people you can't tell anything to. They're so convinced. So I just told him, yeah, give me the books, and then I threw them out. I mean, I knew he was wrong. I know who spoke the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, Sanjaya says that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna Touch Partha Dhanurdara Yatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruvam Nitir Matamana. The last verse of Bhagavad Gita, verse 78, chapter 18. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. A verse before that, he says, Tachcha samsmritya rupam ati adbhutam hare. He says, O king, he's speaking to he's speaking to Dhritarashtra. As I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with wonder more and more, and I rejoice again and again. And then the previous verse, he says, Rajan samsmritya sambadam imam adbhutam keshavarjuno punya. He says, O king, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, he didn't say between Shiva and Arjuna. This is verse 18th chapter, verse 76. I take pleasure, being thrilled at every moment. So these are the original words of Bhagavad Gita. spoken by Sanjaya. Verse 1876, he clearly says, Keshavarjuno Punyam. He said, Lord Krishna and Arjuna. So many places he says, he also says, 1875, Vyasa Prasadach Chutavan Etad Guyam Aham Param Yogam Yogeshwarat Krishnat. He actually mentions Krishna's name. He says, by the mercy of Vyasa, I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who was speaking personally to Arjuna. So who do you think spoke the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna or Shiva?
Krishna.
Yeah, so what is that man talking about?
I thought the last verse was 18 plus 78.
Yes, I read that already. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, wait. I think I know why the guy.
Microphone. You know why?
No, wait.
That would be your second speculation today.
No. I think I know why, like, Krishna, no. I think I know why that guy, like, claimed that Shiva spoke the Bhagavad Gita. Because you know how when the Pandavas all went to in the forest to meditate and, like, to get blessings, because, like, you know how, like, Bhima, incognito? Oh, they pretended that they weren't actually the Pandavas, and, like, they went to the forest to meditate and everything, and, like, so, like, Bhishma got the blessings of Hanuman, and, like, right? And then, so didn't Arjuna get the blessings of Shiva? So maybe, like, I feel like then he probably thought, like, oh, then Shiva, when Shiva,
Arjuna received a weapon from Lord Shiva.
And that weapon was that bow, the Gandhi.
the Gandhi. Is that from Shiva?
Okay.
It's from Lord Brahma.
This is in the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
In the purport, second chapter,
Second chapter?
and verse number 33. Arjuna was a famous fighter, and he attained fame by fighting many great demigods, including even Lord Shiva. After fighting and defeating Lord Shiva in the dress of a hunter, Arjuna pleased the Lord and received as a reward a weapon called Pasupati Astra. Everyone knew that he was a great warrior. Even Dronacharya gave him benedictions and awarded him the special weapon by which he could kill even his teacher. So he was credited with so many military certificates from many authorities, including his adopted father, Indra, the heavenly king. Okay, so you got the Pasupati Astra from Lord Shiva. But so what? I mean, because he received a benediction from Dronacharya, does that make Dronacharya the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita? No. This is just ridiculous. Sanjaya knows more than this man's guru or anyone else. And he's saying that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita.
What? Did Bhima get any, like, god, any, like, good sword from the gods?
All the Pandavas received benedictions. All of them.
Which sword did Bhima have?
I don't know right now, but we'll tell you later on. Okay, so now we have another verse, first canto, second chapter, verse number 17, where it says that if you regularly hear about Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, then Krishna becomes your best wishing friend, and because you constantly engage in hearing of him, he reveals to you knowledge of himself through your heart. And eventually you can see Krishna always. So what should be our main, let's say, activity or main vocation, V-O-C-A-T-I-O-N? You know what that word means? Vocation. Yeah, but vocation, there is a occupation and there's vocation. So your occupation is you can be an IT person, but your vocation is you engage in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Krishna. Vocation means the thing you really like to do the best. Right? It's your vocation. It's the thing that gives you the greatest pleasure in life, so you do it. So some people, build model boats. Other people have model train sets. Other people, play football. But the real vocation of the devotee is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Yes, that's the real vocation. That's the thing that the devotee likes to do the best, the most. So if you, according to this verse, take a real interest in hearing about Krishna, then Krishna reveals knowledge of himself, and eventually he lets you see him constantly. First canto, second chapter, verse number 17. And you can find it also in the purport to Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, verse number 1. It's in the purport. Okay. All right. Now we're going to hear one more verse. We heard the verse by Brahma. We heard the verse spoken by Sukadeva Goswami. We heard the verse spoken by Krishna, 13th chapter, 26th verse. The verse spoken by Brahma is Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14 through 8, right? And then we heard Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-17. And now we're going to hear a verse from the Mahabharata, from the Vanaparva, and it says, Tarko patista shruteo vibina nasa vrishir yasya matam nabinam dharmasya tatvam nihitam guhayam mahajana yenagata sapanta. It's a very famous verse. Prabhupada quotes the last line of it in many places. Mahajano yenagata sapanta. And he says, this verse says, dry arguments are inconclusive. What does that mean? Dry arguments are inconclusive. Is that something you find in a desert? Dry arguments? What is a dry argument?
What chapter?
Just listen. Don't be so distracted by your computer. What is a dry argument, Arush? Is it like really thirsty? Yes? Wait a minute, she's speaking. Do you know what a dry argument is, Arish? No, he doesn't know. Okay, go ahead.
Is it like an argument without any evidence?
Yeah, it's a speculative, let's say, theory. It's a dry, there's no juice. That's what it means. There's no juice. It's very dry. It's tasteless, So it says, dry arguments are inconclusive. What does that mean, inconclusive? Inconclusive. What does conclusion mean? It's the main point. You end with the main point, right? So if something is inconclusive, what does that mean? Yeah, there's no conclusion. There's no final point that is solid, that this is what it means. So dry arguments are inconclusive. Speculative arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. So people, in order to become famous, whatever is the prevailing thought of their age, let's say, their society, they come up with a new idea that's different, and that gives them. It doesn't mean that new idea is true. It's just they come up with a new idea to establish themselves as some kind of great guy. You see, so this is happening all the time. People are coming up with theories all the time to establish their fame. So it says, a great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. In other words, the Vedas are so big, called voluminous. They're so big. There's so many different Vedas. By reading them, you just get confused.
But have you seen one of the Vedas?
What?
But the Bhagavad Gita is not that
Bhagavad Gita is one chapter of the Mahabharata. It's only one chapter. But it's considered because Krishna spoke it directly, it's considered the best literature of all the Vedic literatures, because it's short, it's to the point, and it's spoken directly by Krishna. Okay? And so it's saying, simply by studying the Vedas, you won't really understand what is the absolute truth. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. In other words, there's something secretive about the truth. It's in the heart of a pure devotee. Therefore, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajanas advocate. So that is, the only way you can understand is by following in the footsteps of a pure devotee of Krishna. What does that mean? We discussed following in the footsteps.
That means to do. That means to
Follow the instructions of Krishna?
Yes. So follow the footsteps. It's like a metaphorical phrase. Instead of saying follow the instructions, they say follow the footsteps, right? They use the word footsteps instead of instructions. But that's why it's called a metaphor. You use one word to mean something else, right? Just like you call a tree, you call it a gigantic spinach. Well, or a gigantic broccoli. So a tree is not a broccoli, right? But people can understand what you're talking about. A gigantic broccoli, that's called a metaphor. You're using one word to replace another word, right? Just like there's a funny saying in English. It says, "Roses are red, violets are blue. You got a nose like a B-52." Do you know what a B-52 is?
Yeah.
What's a B-52?
It's like the biggest airplane, and it's like
Yeah, it's a gigantic airplane in World War II. They still have B-52s. They're bombers. They can throw tons of bombs on people. Well, is a B-52 a nose? When it says you have a nose like a B-52, it's not a nose, but it's a way of saying that, the person has a really big nose. Okay, so here it's saying that you have to follow in the footsteps of a pure devotee. Then you'll know what the truth is. If you try and study on your own, if you go to different lectures, if you listen to different arguments, you'll never understand what the truth is. You'll never come to a final conclusion. But if you follow in the footsteps of a pure devotee, then you'll know. So what do pure devotees do? They're always engaged in hearing and chanting. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Right? So if you just sit down and listen carefully and chant and repeat, then you'll become educated. You get in real education. What? When you stop asking questions. You have any more questions to ask? Okay, then the class is over. So today we discussed mainly, first of all, we began with a mnemonic. Anybody remember what a mnemonic is? Yes. Go ahead, both of you can answer. Go ahead, with the microphone. What's a mnemonic?
Figuring out something that you don't know with using something that you already know to figure out something that you don't know.
Right. So, one mnemonic is...
One mnemonic is Sayap. Yes, Siap. Right? Isn't it? Right.
Siap.
Yeah,
okay,
yes.
what is Siap is something you know.
Yeah.
So what is it helping you to understand that you don't know?
So S stands for Samadarshana, I stands for Icha, A stands for Ahimsa, another
Again.
A starts for Acharya, and another A starts for Ahimsa, and Adibhutam.
No.
Adi.
Amani.
Amanitvam. Sorry,
Yeah.
Amanitvam.
And
The last one, P stands for Priti.
Pretty. So what do those words mean? Samadarshana.
So
Icha.
Samadarshana means equal vision.
Yes.
Like you see everyone with the relationship of Krishna.
Yes.
And then, okay, so
I-
Icha are choices, like the true choices that Krishna.
Icha. Yes.
Icha, yeah. And so Ahimsa is a non-violence life, like no
Yes.
harm. And then Acharya is teaching by example.
Yes.
Amanitvam is humility.
Yes.
And Priti is developing affection.
Okay, so these are three themes in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And you can remember it with the mnemonic Siap. S-I-A-A-A-P. Siap. Okay? Good. So that was one thing we discussed today. Then we also discussed the material conception of life.
Oh, I know that. The material conception of life is he eats more than...
What's that?
Example is like he eats more than he wants.
Is that the only thing?
He eats more than he wants.
Okay, what's the main thing about the material conception of life?
Sense gratification.
Yeah, person is convinced that the goal of life is to have sense gratification, right? And in other words, they use their body, their mind, their intelligence, everything they have, just for sense gratification. Now, what happens if you engage only in sense gratification?
Then at some point you will, like once you drink, then you become like all gloomy, you sleep when you become fat, and like once you eat too much, then you become fat. Yeah, and then
What? Yeah, so the direct result of just using the body, the mind, intelligence for sense gratification is frustration.
yeah.
Can you have as much sense gratification as you want?
No. Well, you can, but it just leads to a really bad state. Like
No, you can never have enough.
Well,
Is a fire ever stop if you keep feeding it wood?
no.
No. Huh? No, it'll never stop. So you don't get sick and tired of sense gratification by engaging in more sense gratification.
Yeah.
It just increases your desire for sense gratification. It doesn't decrease. And we have many examples of that. Right? How many wives did Ravana have?
Like a lot.
Thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah, thousands of wives. But still he wanted to have Sita also. You think he'd be satisfied would you be satisfied, a Rus, with 1,000 wives?
No. Like, you have to build like a $3 trillion house for them.
Well, he had a $3 trillion house. His house was huge. Hanuman visited his house. It was like huge. And he had one gigantic bed in which all his wives and he would sleep in. His bedroom was bigger than a football field.
What? What's Kumbhakarna's bed?
Kumbhakarna is bigger than Ravana, yeah. Ravana was already big, but Kumbhakarna was bigger. Okay, so we see that the net result of sense gratification is frustration, just the opposite. Do you agree with that, Sanjay?
Yes,
Yeah.
there is no end to it. And at your time, like, the body doesn't go along with your desire.
Now, one of the best examples of this is called Ernest Hemingway. Have you ever heard of Ernest Hemingway? Huh? Yeah. Ernest, E-R-N-E-S-T, Hemingway, H-E-M-I-N-G-W-A-Y. He's a very famous American writer. You will read his books later on in high school. They recommend his books. Now, Ernest Hemingway, he believed that the goal of life is sense gratification. He was a sense gratifier. But when he got older, because of all the sense gratification, he started getting sick. And when he was like 62, I think, he committed suicide. Why do you think he committed suicide? Huh? No, microphone. Why do you think he committed suicide?
Because first of all, he was so absorbed into sense gratification that he came to frustration, and frustration leads to like suicide.
Well, yeah, but the main point is his body became so sick he couldn't enjoy sense gratification anymore the way he wanted to. Like he was a hunter, he was a sportsman, he had many girlfriends and all these things. So at a certain point he got so sick that he couldn't do those things anymore, so he decided to kill himself.
Why?
Because he couldn't enjoy sense gratification anymore. His body was worn out. See? Now another example of that is Marilyn Monroe. Have you ever heard of Marilyn Monroe?
She committed suicide?
She committed suicide, yeah.
She told her at the age of 33.
Yeah, she was 36. She was a young lady. She was one of the most famous, actresses and models in American history. She committed suicide right at 36. And she had fame, she had money, she was very beautiful, because sense gratification. She got so frustrated, she decided to kill herself.
Misery follows
What? I can't explain that in the temple. It's all horrible stuff, all nonsense, not horrible things.
misery follows company.
What?
Misery follows company.
No. That you didn't say it correctly. Misery likes company. Misery likes company. Okay, so then we discussed the material conception of life, and then we began to discuss the importance of how to change the material conception of life, right? How to change it.
I know.
How do you change it? 3 things. What is it?
Follow in the footsteps of you and
That's point 3, okay?
I don't know.
Oh, well, you got one of them right. Yeah. Yes. Is that the answer?
Says, take shelter of a pure devotee,
Yes.
then hear from a pure devotee,
Yes.
follow, and what my percent, and then last one is and then you will gradually become a pure devotee.
You follow in the footsteps of
Yeah.
pure devotee, and then the result will be you will also become a pure devotee. You want to do that, Arush? Yeah. Okay.
So, hear from a pure devotee.
First point, take shelter of a genuine pure devotee. Number 2, regularly hear Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure devotee. Number 3, follow in the footsteps, follow their instructions, follow their example. Say, and learn the technique of faithful hearing. Faithful hearing. So when you associate with someone who has faith in Krishna, you will also gradually develop faith in Krishna, especially by hearing them. Okay, so Sipap and so many things today. We learned a lot of things. Okay, thank you very much. So homework for next week. The homework that you're not going to do for next week. Huh? Oh, tomorrow, I'm sorry. The homework that you're not going to do for tomorrow, but you can write it down anyway, is explain why people end up frustrated by sense gratification. Explain why people become frustrated by sense gratification. What?
Can I tell the answer?
No, you can write it down. You can write it down and read it tomorrow. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yay! Hari Hari Bol!
Hari Bol.